Hi, Nico. How are you?
Hi, Aaliyah. I'm good. How about yourself?
I'm doing well. So, you took some personality assessments. How did that go?
I thought it was really cool. I definitely was asked some questions that I never really had thought about before. So I'm pretty interested to see like what the actual results of it are.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's take a closer look at those.
Okay.
I'm gonna share my screen here. Let me know if you can see that all right.
Yeah, everything's coming
Okay.
up.
All right. So, let's start with your 16 personalities. And the type it gave you was assertive protagonist. Have you ever heard those terms before?
Um, Not really.
Okay, well, we'll take a closer look at that. And the code it gave you was an ENFJA. So
Okay.
that stands for extroverted, intuitive, feeling, judging, and assertive. But we're going to examine what those mean a little further.
Okay.
So, as far as your mind, you got more extroverted, and extroverted individuals tend to get their energy more so from being around other people. Do you
Okay.
think that describes you?
Yeah, I definitely think so to an extent. I've always kind of been, I guess, a little bit loud or talkative. So
Mhm.
I think that like that sometimes will stand out. So yeah, I think I'm definitely considered extroverted.
Okay, so that's pretty accurate. And as far as your mental energy, it is saying you are 88% intuitive. So this kind of just determines what you think about regarding, you know, observing facts or hidden meanings.
Okay.
So, very imaginative and open minded. Would you describe yourself as an intuitive person?
Yeah, I definitely would like to think that I'm open-minded and that I'm really trying to get to the meaning in something that's important to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, let's see nature. And you are 77% feeling overthinking in when making decisions. So, do you think that you tend to use your feelings over thinking to dictate your emotions and decision making?
I would say so because I think I'm like pretty sensitive to shifts in like my body. Like I just always kind of try to tune into what I'm physically feeling, and if I feel uncomfortable, I know I need to change something. Like I don't just necessarily think about it. It's kind of just like a sensation type of deal. So yeah, I think that feelings definitely my nature.
And I think that will be something that benefits you in terms of your counseling career, being able to, just be in touch with your own feelings and body.
Sure.
Um, for tactics, and this reflects the approach to work planning and decision making. It has you being 64% judging. And this kind of refers to, being more organized and planning rather than prospecting would be kind of more spontaneous and on the fly. So, do you kind of identify with judging?
Yeah, I would say that I definitely do like to plan things out. I feel like my style was planning too, though. Like sometimes it might take me a while, but
Hmm.
I think after a while, like by the time I actually enact the plan, I think it's usually pretty thought out.
Right. And I think that also will help you. I mean, pretty much in any career, just having a plan and sticking to it. So your identity. And this one kind of isn't touched upon a lot when talking about personality assessments, but it is having you as 75% assertive rather than turbulent, which I think is a pretty positive thing. It just goes to show how confident you are in your own abilities and decisions, and that you don't really worry too much or push yourselves too hard when trying to achieve goals. Do you think that's pretty accurate to say?
That's like weirdly spot on. And like I think it does usually benefit me because I think usually like I'm not overwhelmed because I find some way to manage it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that maybe too sometimes though, like that I probably don't do something as well as I could, maybe though, because like my body's trying to keep even keel and say, no, this is good, you know? So that's definitely something I'll pay attention to in the future.
Right. Yeah. No, that's definitely a good thing that you kind of are already aware of that.
Yeah.
So let's see more about what it says about your personality type. Okay. So it says you feel called to serve a greater purpose in life and that you are very thoughtful, idealistic, and you are always looking for an opportunity to do the right thing, which might not always be easy. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I definitely feel that way. I definitely feel that way in regard to counseling. I want to help people with as many natural means as possible. And I mean, sometimes in this world, it kind of just the society turns to pharmaceutical treatment oftentimes. And I think that like I'm striving to work around that the best I can and to really heal the body with other means. And
Hmm.
so even though like that's uncomfortable, right? Like I don't want to create dissonance with anybody, but that's kind of what you have to do when you feel it's the right thing. And in some cases, which once again, I think there are cases for pharmaceutical medicine too. But so yeah, I definitely think that's true for me.
Right. Um, yeah, so that can be difficult in your case, dealing with counseling.
For sure.
So it also says that you are a born leader, which is great. You have a lot of passion and charisma, which definitely would benefit you in any career, I'd say. And very inspiring to others, not just in your careers, but every aspect of your life. Would you say that you tend to have a lot of passion for everything you do?
Absolutely. And not really sure where that comes from. I just like to think that people like family and stuff like that giving me support when I was a kid. I think it just kind of made it an automatic tape in my mind to think that like you can achieve things,
Hmm.
and it's a good thing because I also feel like others can achieve things. And I think that that kind of helps in terms of inspiration. I definitely would like to hope that I inspire other people. And I'm definitely sure that other people inspire me.
Hmm.
So I'm really glad to hear that because I think that that's something that it's really important to me is just to be an inspiration, but to also be inspired.
Right. And I think other people just being around you, they kind of are inspired just, being in the same vicinity. And as far as charisma, do you get it a lot that you're pretty charismatic?
Yeah, to an extent. I think I speak my mind a lot. I think that people see that. So sure, yeah, I think I've been told that before.
Hmm. No, I think I can get that from you. Kind of can talk the talk, it seems.
Thanks.
You're very vocal about your values, which include authenticity and altruism. So, kind of, we touched on that just a little bit, just speaking up when they find something to be unjust or wrong. How how often do you think that's true for you?
Um, I feel like it's definitely very true. And once again, like just as we're bringing this into like my awareness, it's just making me think like it's definitely something to work on too, because I think sometimes like talking in a certain context doesn't really do much, so maybe it even can stress me out sometimes. But yeah, I certainly do, especially with everything that's been going on recently with COVID and different things before that. There's just so much to be said about it. And I definitely do speak up a lot, just really just for the sake of trying to find a good answer
Hmm.
to all the questions that we have, and just to keep that conversation going.
Right, right. Okay. And oh, down here it says that when protagonists care about someone, they really will go at any length to solve the person's problems. and maybe that might even be at the expense of yourself. Do you think that you tend to do that at all?
Yeah, I think so. I think that when I really care about people, I do things in different forms, maybe even if it's just like giving a ride or trying to look something up, even
Hmm.
if like it's taking time or it's stressful, I think I definitely do that. So yeah, I think this one's true for sure.
Okay. Very genuine. I definitely have to be careful about that because sometimes that can lead to burnout, which I think we're going to read down below here in a little bit. Very innate leadership skills and the ability to guide others. And very compassionate, dedicated, and caring. So I think these are all very positive attributes. Let's go over to the strengths and weaknesses.
Okay.
So first one here, it says receptive, you have strong opinions, but not closed-minded, which I think you would agree in counseling, that's going to be really important to kind of, collaborate with others and hear what they have to say as well. Would you consider yourself to be a receptive individual?
Honestly, I've never really heard that word put in those terms, and I love that. And I definitely hope I really strive for that. Like I definitely think of something and have a strong opinion on it because I've really looked into it. But at the same time, that doesn't mean anything. I know I could be wrong. And so I like to be open-minded, and I want people to feel like when I put something out there, it's really just because that's what I think, but that's
Hmm.
not what I don't think I know. So, that's awesome.
Right. I think that makes you a very strong communicator in that sense. Being reliable, I think, everyone loves a reliable person. You can, be counted on and follow through with your promises and responsibilities. Would you say that you're reliable?
Yeah, for sure. I think that I think that people depend on me a lot for something, and if I tell them something, I think they know I'm going to come through.
Hmm. Very passionate, which we touched on that a little bit already as well. What things, besides your career, do you think you're passionate about?
Um, I would say I'm passionate about learning. I would like just reading books in general, maybe specifically too. Like I like to I like to really open my mind up in that way. Like it's super important to me. So I think a lot of times people ask me, like, Nico, how are you reading that like nonfiction book? And it's just like to me, it's just it's 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 nonfiction, but like in its own way, it's still fiction. And it really makes me feel something deeply. So I definitely am passionate about learning and exploring new ideas.
That's great because I think in your profession, lifelong learning is going to be something that you'll have to keep up with. So that will make it a lot easier for you to continuing to learn. Very altruistic, a deep desire to bring a positive change. And like we said earlier, very charismatic. So very capable of being in leadership roles. How do you feel about being a leader?
I definitely feel like I could be a leader in a lot of contexts because I think that I would definitely think about how somebody that I was quote unquote leading is feeling, and that would be important to me. And I think that that would help kind of strengthen our connection to be respectful of what they're feeling. I think the only thing I get worried with being a leader is, I would probably nitpick about if I was prepared for that leadership role in terms of the content. So like, if I'm leading some group, I want to make sure I know what it is that I'm doing. So the goal of the group, right? Like being the leader won't be hard. So I definitely think this is true for me, but I would definitely try to be aware of like you know, am I an effective person to accomplish the specific goal in mind? You know,
Mhm.
but yeah, I definitely think the leadership part's true for me and that I would do that.
And I think because you care so much about that, that you wouldn't just take a leadership position if you didn't think you were capable. So you would kind of go above and beyond to make sure that you would be able to do the job well.
Absolutely. I totally agree.
And as far as weaknesses, these aren't, you know, particularly about you. These are just, in general about the personality type, but they could be looked at as, just ways that you can improve and work on. And some of
Okay.
these might not even be true for you. So you tend to put pressure on yourselves to right every wrong. And this could leave you maybe being a little unrealistic. Do you think that unrealistic would be a term to describe you at all?
Unfortunately, yeah, I do think that I do that. Like if I make a mistake, sometimes I kind of wish it was overturned. Um, and yeah, I mean, I know I think because I'm aware of that desire to want to help so many people, though, it does help me buffer a little bit against this because, like, it is difficult to save the whole world to an extent.
Hmm.
So like it's something that I'm aware of, but I can have some pretty high goals that, get borderline unachievable. I mean, I don't ever want to put myself in a box about what you can and can't do, but I also try to measure it against like what have I accomplished to say how close I am to that next goal now. But this has definitely been something for me throughout my life that I wish I would have had a little more insight on.
Hmm. Well, it's definitely something to keep in mind with having, very high goals, which is a good thing, I think.
Sure.
Overly idealistic. So maybe you have very clear ideas about what you think is right and wrong. So you feel that other people should also share those same beliefs. Do you feel like that is true for you?
Yeah, I think that definitely happens, right? Because like we're talking about being passionate and everything, I think I do kind of have an idea that something is right. Um, so yeah, for sure.
Okay. And that's another thing to kind of just think about, especially being a counselor and kind of, you know, agreeing to disagree with others.
For sure. For sure.
And maybe because you enjoy teaching others so much, you could potentially come off as condescending. Do you think that you come off this way at all?
You know, I definitely have had pretty much like a comment or two like that in the past. And it really hurt my feelings, but
Mhm.
I understand because and it really just as this exactly how this is like describing it because of like the wanting to teach and talk about it certain things people think that you're trying to say that you know it all, and that's really like something that I definitely want to work on in the future too. Like maybe if I'm just meeting someone for the first time and I don't have that much rapport, maybe I shouldn't go into a whole spiel about
Mhm.
something that I'm interested in, because it might come off as too like how could I even tell this guy anything else?
Yeah.
So I definitely have got that, and I can see that how somebody might feel that way.
Mhm. It's not that you're intending to come off that way,
Right.
but
I'm not
you
trying to
know,
hurt anybody, but it ends up being just too hard to work with that, I guess.
right. But since you are aware of that, that is good and something that you can work on. And, very intense, like we said, in terms of energy and determination, overly empathetic, which in counseling, you do need to be empathetic. But like we said, this can lead to you being burnt out if you're taking on other people's problems. Have you ever thought about, have you ever thought about that before?
Yeah, it's really hard to watch people suffer. I definitely think that that's a huge part of counseling for me is to try to give people a second chance in life, whether it's just learning a skill that they never could or, processing some kind of bad situation. So, I mean, yeah, I'm a little bit, I know that could get me a little bit
Hmm.
stressed out, thinking like, wow, this person's still suffering. And I'm just seeing whether or not I really had an effect on them, and just knowing that they're still in that position or not. It's just that could really be stressful for me.
So you don't have to learn to decompartmentalize in that sense.
Yeah.
Take a look at your career paths now.
Okay.
So you will tend to find fulfillment in helping other people. And the good thing is that you can work in nearly any environment. So that gives you a lot of options in terms of a career.
Yeah, I never thought of that. That's a pretty cool idea.
Yeah, so don't need to box yourself in any particular career because the possibilities are really endless for you. And thanks to your emotional intelligence and social skills, people-oriented fields are going to be especially fitting for you. So counseling, which you're already in, that's great that you kind of, fit this line of work really well. Social work, coaching, healthcare, any of those other ones sound interesting to you at all?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I like anything from the social work to the counseling, and really even the teaching. So
Hmm.
those three, especially of course counseling, given that I'm in the program now and that I would consider doing like clinical psychology or counseling psychology in the future. Um, yeah, those three definitely stick out, especially the counseling.
Perfect. And rather than a background position, protagonists kind of would rather acquire that leadership position. So we talked about it a little bit on your thoughts of being a leader. So maybe eventually you might have a position where you are leading others.
Yeah, that would be great.
Mhm. And it even says that you could do well in jobs like sales, customer service, marketing, advertising, and product development. Have you ever thought about those before?
I think so, because I think that like there's certain biotechnology stuff that I'll be into in the future, like similar to a lot of the stuff coming out now. You put on a wristband and it measures your heart rate and stuff like that. I think that if I found something like that really useful for other people, then I would be very motivated to market it. Because
Mhm.
once again, that would benefit other people, and that would be a way to get it out there. So that kind of deeper meaning piece would really drive me to do that.
Right, and that's really interesting you say that because I wouldn't have guessed. But being that your personality type is so flexible, you really can work in such a variety of positions. Okay, and it does say here that you kind of prefer doing things that are, different day to day rather than something that might be repetitive. Would you say that is true for you?
I have to say yes. Like even the job I work now, I'm on the same unit every day, but people are always doing something different. I work with kids, so with teenagers specifically,
Hmm.
and it's always something different, and I think that that helps me not get like super bored. So I think that that's definitely, it's like it can be roughly about the same thing, but I like a different look at it. Like I could study the same topic, but like I might be reading two different books, or I finish one book and I definitely want to go read something else about it. So yeah, switching things up is entertaining for me.
Great. Okay. That's good to keep in mind. And you are fulfilled by kind of reflecting on the bigger picture. And it might be important for you to leave a positive legacy. Do you think that is important for you?
Yeah, yeah, to an extent, I definitely think so. I'd like to think that I help people. I helped a lot of people when that time comes where I feel like it's either the end of the career, or even passing away one day, looking back on things, being like, what did I do in my lifetime? And yeah, I think so. I do think that positive legacy doesn't have to be like being a celebrity, but
Right,
I
right.
even if it was a positive legacy in a smaller context, I think that would be great.
And I think that just goes back to how much you care about helping others. So that's great.
Yeah.
And now that we kind of looked at your 16 personalities, I want to go over to focus and see what it has there.
Great.
Oops. Okay. Here we are. And for your work interest assessment, it is labeling you as investigative for the thinkers, social for the helpers, and realistic for the doers.
Okay.
And this assessment is based on a theorist, John Holland, and he kind of describes the way that people fit into their environments. So someone who is investigative, which would be working in jobs that are scientific in nature and, using computers or math to solve formulas and think abstractly, they're going to do well in an investigative environment. And I do think it is important, or I think it's interesting that it says that these individuals prefer to work independently with minimum supervision. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I'd like to think that once I'm like a professional to some degree, when I go to investigate a problem, that I could largely be working on it myself. That doesn't mean I'm not in contact with other individuals every now and then to get some input, but I would like to think that there's a serious amount of work that I can do alone. Although I would probably be collaborating with people to an extent, I think that's true.
That's great that you being an extrovert, you're also willing to work independently and have the confidence in yourself to be able to get things done on your own.
Sure.
So it also gave you social and realistic, which social to me kind of just screams counseling and helping.
Yeah, sounds like it.
Yeah, we touched on that a lot. And it kind of says the opposite, as these individuals prefer to work with others in a team. So that kind of goes against what the investigative says. But, you're not really fit into one box. And these can like vary for individuals. So,
okay.
And the last one it has is realistic. And it says you like to work with objects and things, maybe being physically active, repairing equipment, working with your hands. So this is really interesting, and I'll tell you why in a second, but do you think that you identify with the realistic aspect?
Yeah, I mean, to an extent, I definitely think that I would like to build certain things. I don't know that I have enough technical ability to do that yet in certain aspects, but I do think that like if I had more knowledge, I'd probably be trying to build some things for sure.
Okay, so I want to show you this hexagon, and this also ties into Holland's theory about individuals fitting into their environments. So you got, was it social, investigative, and realistic? Is that what it was?
Yeah.
Yeah. So for boxes that are adjacent, it's said that these have the most overlap, and people in these could kind of, do similar things. So the artistic being close to the social kind of share some similarities. But on the other hand, the ones that are across from each other are said to be like opposite. So it is really interesting that you got both social and realistic. How do you think that is, applied to you? Being opposite.
I would say that like definitely the social part, right? Wanting to help other people and just being like a kind of talkative person. With the realistic, I think once again, I think that this probably just picked up. There is a there is a desire to me to build stuff and to create things. Even like one of my hobbies that I'm going to get a lot more into is electronics. So I think that maybe it kind of picked that up in me, that like there is a little bit of an industrial kind of side. Um, yeah.
Okay, and that's really interesting. And Holland kind of theorizes that, like we said, being in an opposite category might not fit for this individual. So for you being investigative, do you think doing something in enterprising would, just be absolutely terrible, or do you think that you would be able to do something in that
You
sense?
know, so I think really in support of this hexagon, I think that no, I wouldn't overall really like to do that. Like anything, for the most part, I don't want to do that. But like I said, there is a context in which I would. So kind of like what you're saying, how it's not like, an absolute like no, or it's the
Hmm.
absolute opposite of you or anything like that. Like I could see in a context where I would do something like that. But I definitely 9 out of 10 of my preferred jobs would be investigative over enterprising for sure.
Yeah. And it is interesting. I think on the 16 personalities, it mentioned that you could even do well in a sales position.
Yeah.
So it's all relative.
Yeah.
So let's go back and look at the values that you have listed. So right off the bat, two of your values involve helping others. So for the better of the world, or, just individually. And that kind of goes back to your strong counseling background.
Okay.
And something else it says is your artistic creativity, which I think is also very helpful when it comes to counseling. But do you think that you are a creative individual?
I would like to think so. I definitely do. Once again, like, I like electronics, and that also kind of goes with music a little bit because I'm really into potentially like, producing some music and stuff like that. So I think once again, this personality assessment's kind of definitely picked up on a lot of different stuff about me. Um, so yeah, I would like to think I'm creative to an extent.
Hmm. Yes, it has been very accurate so far. So that is great. And your personality assessment. You approach work and life with a positive concern about people. You like to work with others in a cooperative way, recognizing the potential in everyone and wanting them to reach their full potential as well. Very flexible, spontaneous, and able to keep your options open. And you like to come up with new ideas and ways of doing things. So you enjoy projects that explore new concepts about human understanding, well being, and the health of others. I feel like this kind of is congruent with the other personality assessment that we looked at. What do you think?
Yeah, spot on. I
Hmm.
think that definitely is how I am and what I hope for other people. So yeah.
And it does say that you might be attracted to occupations in counseling, teaching, health science, psychology, arts, and literature. So that also, again, I'd say is spot on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now let's take a quick look at your skills. So listening, active listening, that's going to be really important in counseling. So that's great. And then science, which you did talk a lot about your previous, medical and biology interest and background.
Certainly.
So I think that could even come to help you in, research and things like that. And then social perceptiveness, being aware of the reactions of others. Would you say that you're very socially perceptive?
Yeah, I would definitely say to an extent for sure. Um, so it is important to me to know like what, people are feeling around me to kind of see if there's a way that I can like change my behavior just to support our interaction. So
Hmm.
yeah, I think overall, yes.
Okay, and I think as you go on with your career and job and counseling, that you'll only get stronger in that aspect.
Yeah.
So let's look at the jobs that it has come up for you. So right off the bat, you have one occupation that appears in all 4 assessments, and that is a general internist in biology and chemistry. And that is a very attractive salary. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that that's definitely one of the number one jobs for me, just for the simple fact that I do like some of the medical applications, and I kind of see like a lot of things with health. I think there are basic bio things that we need to do, but it's not even what I think is necessarily my next career step.
Uh-huh.
So
Okay, so let's look a little bit more. Art therapist, business professor. So just kind
I
of let me know if any of these sound interesting to you.
I think I knew where you were going with that, and I think that clinical psychologist right there is, and counseling psychologist for that matter. I know those are probably
Okay,
similar.
all right. And for those, you have that psychology background, and it doesn't list counseling, but counseling is going to be another, um, prereq that you could go into psychology with. And for those salaries, it lists about 78,690 for both. How do you feel about that salary?
I think that that's great.
Okay, awesome. So if you want to, next time we can spend a little bit more time going more in depth about the clinical and counseling psychologist. How's that sound?
Yeah, I think that's perfect. That's definitely the way I'm going.
Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen now. Okay, so I think today was a really good opportunity for me to learn a little bit more about your personality and for you as well. And that next time we can really dive more into career specifically and then, determine maybe what your next steps are.
Yeah, that sounds great. I definitely felt like I learned a lot about myself too, and just have a new way of describing some other things that I was slightly aware of. So this was definitely beneficial. I'm excited to see what we find out next time as to what my next steps are.
Okay, awesome. Do you have any questions before we go?
No, I don't think so.
All right. Well, I will see you next time.
See you.